good day. How you going? What do you know? Don't strike a light. Good day. And how you going? Just say good day, and you'll be right.
Welcome to the Midweek End Times News and Trends Briefing as we share major events and what is happening around the world as it relates to Bible prophecy. Today's date is Wednesday, October 11th, 2017. It is amazing how fast this year has gone by and all the events that has transpired, and it's hard to keep up with this on a regular basis. Now, it's been a while since doing some of these midweek updates, and I know I miss it, and there's so many things that go on any particular week that can make it sometimes difficult to get an update done. And there's heaps of other distractions and other things that actually have greater priorities than me doing an update. So I try to do it when I can, and it's probably been the last month and a bit or so. I stopped putting pressure on myself and trying to get something out there as much as I want to and try to keep people informed. It keeps me in the loop of looking at some news articles and items as much as I can to stay in the loop of things, and I found it a great blessing personally, but also to witness to a lot of people concerning the end times and what's happening. So I do thank you for your patience and for your understanding. Anyways, here are some briefing points and some news items to be aware of. Out of the Jerusalem Post had this article, and there's others that carry a very similar report, how Hamas and Fatah are to take part in reconciliation talks in Cairo. And so they're trying to end this decade-long of territorial division between the West Bank and Gaza Strip. The talks are set to place several weeks after Hamas had agreed to dissolve its governing body in Gaza and invite the Palestinian Authority to take its place. Hamas has controlled Gaza since the ousting of the Palestinian Authority in 2007 from the territory. So you see alliances, you see the restructuring of some of the organization there in the Palestinians and the Middle East. All eventually will attack Israel. Again, they say they want peace, but when you look at their history, you look at their plans, it's all to come in and attack Israel. So that will eventually take place. So the reorganization of these things, the reconciliation, you can see it's going to build a bigger organization there. On to another terrorist organization, Iran. Iran, according to the Israeli National News, have tried to acquire nuke missile technology 32 times. So this article talks about how the Iran regime made dozens of attempts to acquire technology critical for its nuclear weapons and ballistic missile programs. Fox News reported on Monday night a possible violation of the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which is the acronym of JCPOA, better known as the Iran nuclear deal. Fox News had cited 3 German intelligence reports that indicated that agents working on behalf of Tehran made 32 procurement attempts that definitely or with high likelihood were undertaken with the profit of proliferation programs. The attempts acquisition aimed at technology used for advancing Iran's military nuclear program and efforts by the regime to manufacture effective medium to long-range delivery systems for the future atomic weapon reportedly took place in 2016 after the JCPOA took effect in January of that year. So their whole goal, as they've been very clear all along, is to wipe Israel off the face of the map. They're as much of a rogue nation as what North Korea is. North Korea is the one that's launching missiles, just as Iran has been testing its ballistic missiles. So it's just a matter of time before both of these rogue nations really reach the point of no return. On to some other subjects and other disasters as we're seeing all around, from hurricane damages and other storms and earthquakes in various places. And it's going to take so much time to rebuild, and billions of dollars to rebuild those places. But also currently this week, the last couple of days, we've been seeing those radical fires that are taking place in California as well. Now, this isn't a prophetic point, but just the fact that there's chaos going on in the world. Just you look at the amount of disasters that are going on. Close to 11 dead so far in this particular fire, and thousands, tens of thousands have moved away or moved out to the area to evacuate. The LA Times and Bloomberg report had several reports on this. At least 10 have died in the last reporting. I know there was at least 11 since the time of the article came out. At least 1,500 homes, businesses, and other structure have been destroyed, as more than 14 fires ravaged 8 counties in northern California on Monday. And so it's all over the place that we're seeing disasters taking place around the world and also throughout the U.S. On to a couple moral issues that have transpired as well. And we're seeing this continue to catch some wind, but at some point people will eventually will say enough's enough of this sort of agenda. But the California law allows jail time for using wrong gender pronoun. Sponsor denies that this would happen, but we're seeing it happening. Not only in California, other states and other, I know in Canada has a very similar law as well. In California, it's just gone downhill so fast since the Democrats have taken control of the House and Senate and as the governor. Just the policies, they're absolutely destroying the state. I would say country, because it's the same similar idea what Obama did for 8 years and how he destroyed America with his policies. Similar thing here in California. And it's very sad when, you grew up in California and it's your home state. You love the, California, but you look at what's taken place over the last several years, and it was a long slope to this point, but the way the Democrats have pushed this agenda and the liberal agenda, it's like it's an unrecognizable state from how it once was. Anyways, but this article out of Fox News that talks about how healthcare, workers in California willfully and repeatedly decline to use a senior transgender patient's preferred name or pronouns could face punishment ranging from fine to jail time under the new signed law. Governor Brown signed a legislation last week. The sponsor, Democrat State Senator Scott Wiener, who has argued that admittedly that nobody's going to be criminally prosecuted for using the wrong pronouns. He said that just more than scare tactics by people who oppose the LGBT civil rights and protectants, but the body language, through this whole thing, seemingly allows for the possibility, though. The bill itself is aimed at protecting transgender and other LGBT individuals in hospitals, retirement homes, assisted living facilities. The bill would ensure that those facilities accommodate transgender people and their needs, including letting them decide which gender-specific bathrooms that they prefer to use. So among the unlawful actions are willfully and repeatedly failing to use transgender pronouns, preferred names or pronouns that they, clearly informed of the preferred name or the pronouns. The law states that if provisions are violated, the violators would be punished by a fine not to exceed $1,000 or by imprisonment in a county jail for a period not to exceed at least 1 year or both. Opponents of the law, the California Family Counsel Greg Burt, slammed the measure when the bill was in its early stages, and he said this: How can you believe in free speech but think the government can compel people to use certain pronouns when talking to others? He said at the California Assembly Judiciary Committee in August. This bowing down to a small group of people and changing the law so everyone within a state, and close to 40 million or so, have to abide by this for just a couple of people seems so absurd. But this whole transgender thing, eventually I believe it will die down because people realize that you're either one gender or another, not just based on what you feel or what you think. You're male or female. That's it. So this is kind of an abnormal thought pattern and confusing pattern that's been going on. Anyways, in dealing with California, there's a guy, he's a professor in one of the universities, and he's got a lot of great videos on YouTube. His name's Victor Davis Hanson. Victor Davis Hanson, and he's got a very, articulate, well-stated explanations of what's going on in California and other positions within the U.S. as well, and foreign policy. And so there's a bunch of clips that he's got up there. He doesn't have his own YouTube channel, just people have videoed him and the interviews that he's done. And he's worth checking out. There's another guy, while I'm on that topic of YouTube or videos or guys to look into. And this guy's very articulate as well, funny, but very well-informed, whether you agree with everything or not. But his name is Lionel Nation. Lionel Nation, he's got a YouTube channel. He's got a lot of new stuff. He's on a lot of different news stations as well. But he is also another individual that can articulate very well the issues of our time. Anyways, just something to consider. And then we also see on another moral issue, it's very sad and pathetic to see the depravity that goes into this and honoring people who kill and murder people for a living. But Google sponsors an event holding president of nation's largest abortion provider. So the Google is sponsoring an event to honor Cecil Richard, the president of Planned Parenthood, at the nation's largest abortion provider. Google is a platform or platinum, which is 25,000, sponsor of the Center for Community Changes Community Champions Award event, which will be held on Thursday, October 12th, at the Howard Center in New York or in Washington D.C. A Google spokesman confirmed. The annual event honors heroes on the front lines of resistance, the center's website says. They also mentions too frequent, we focus on the final outcomes of a campaign instead of the moment to honor the often unsung heroes behind the scenes. The Community Change Champion Awards are created to do that. To recognize the people and the organization whose work is making progress toward social justice a reality. We honor work that reshapes the political landscape and challenges us to press toward a better world. We're not going to do that when you're murdering, millions of babies and thousands throughout a year. This award will honor Richards, the president of Planned Parenthood, as a champion in community activism. And according to its latest 2015-2016 report, they performed some 328,348 abortions in its latest fiscal year. But like we said, how sick and how deprived a society and a group of people have to be to honor an individual like this who makes a living killing and murdering innocent lives. And I saw this interesting image, a little picture, had some stats on it. Forget what Twitter account I got this from. Kind of given the stats of the death, of the U.S. In a particular year, 2016. And I think these stats are a little more general, but I think you get the general idea. And it's kind of it was something probably on gun control, how abortion had some 501,000 deaths, heart disease some 282,000, obesity 140,000. Then you had a bunch of other types of medical issues and other, complications, and then you had prescription drug overdose, some 6,000 plus there, and then murder by gun, some 5,276. And now, I don't know how accurate these stats are, but they're pretty general, but you get a general idea of what the stats are. But there's need for gun control, but you look at the amount of deaths and murders by abortion, it's not even a comparison. Anyways, and then lastly, on a different perspective issue, and this is just kind of what's taking place in the Middle East in dealing with Christians and believers. But last weekend at the Epicenter Conference at Calvary Costa Mesa last weekend, there were some stats that was given by Joel Rosenberg, and he talked about how some of the people throughout the Middle East, how they have these satellite dishes, and there's Arab-speaking TV programs being broadcast into the homes of both Arabs and non-Arabs, the Muslims, etc., and how so many people are accepting Christ and calling, the stations with their confession to Christ. But this warfare that's going on for believers in the Middle East, and as Joe Rosenberg would say in one of the sessions, that the war is being fought on the ground and on the air, and how the church needs both for this warfare to preach the gospel in the highways, the byways, to continue to broadcast, but to continue to have a place for believers to come together to learn and grow the love and mercy of Jesus Christ, to learn the Word of God, the technology of the air, the ground troops of the believers forming the churches. And he said that it was hard to calculate the real numbers of believers in the Middle East, but here's an estimate that has transpired. There's probably more than this, but I'm just giving a general idea. I mentioned there are some 11 million or so Christians in Egypt. So there's a huge population there that are Christian, and there's many people that I run into here that are Christians, Egyptians that have moved here to Melbourne, and I run into so many Christians that all the time. He mentioned about some Messianic Jews, some 25 to 30,000, some Arab evangelicals, and there are some that went to this conference that were from Arab background, and he said some 4,000 to 5,000 evangelical Christians. Syria had quite a few as well, and there's some 21 to 23,000 evangelical Christians. Lebanon had close to 21,000, Jordan about 15,000, and Iraq, as we mentioned in previous times, the decline of Christianity there because of ISIS and trying to stamp out Christianity, about 1,000 to 3,000 evangelicals, probably less than that, but there's probably around that period of time as well, or those numbers, I should say. So we need to be praying for these believers in these countries, the persecution that they come under, the attacks, especially in the Arab countries, Muslim countries, how you can get beheaded or you get ostracized. It's very difficult being a Christian in some of these foreign lands where they're not protected like we are in the Western world at this point. So we need to be praying for them, praying that for the protection, for boldness, when they need to witness or not to compromise in their faith and their walk with the Lord. And so we need to continue to uplift our brothers and sisters around the world that are believers in Christ, going through tremendous difficulty. and even within our local fellowships and churches. We need to be people of prayer. We need to be encouraging one another, building each other up in our faith and our walk with the Lord. And we need to continue to keep our eyes fixed upon Jesus Christ. We need to stay in the Word. We need to stay informed and be alert and watchful in what's happening around us. So this is kind of just some brief points to consider. Some of it's prophetic, some of it's not prophetic, but it's just kind of a general idea what's going on, and some things that I see from a pastor's heart as well. And so until next time, may the Lord radically and outrageously bless you.